Welcome to Jim's Informal Open Mic. I have a quick disclaimer. This informal open mic is not sponsored by, promoted by, or connected to Verse Virtual. This is me as an individual doing this because I like poetry and I like to visit with friends. So we'll follow the same basic format that we've done before, in that we will take turns reading. And I'm going to assign each of you a number. You'll have to remember the number because when it's your turn, I won't say your name, I'll just say the number. And I don't have to remember shifting faces on my screen. Ken, you will be number 1. Mary, number 2. Kavita, number 3. Shaun, number 4. Lorraine, number 5. 1, 2, what did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Charles, number 6. And I will be number 7. And we'll read a poem, one poem, and then move to the next number so that we all have a chance to go around and maybe make comments or discuss something that triggers us, a thought or a tangent. We'll do that. So without any further ado, number 1.
Can we screen share?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
Strolling through the park. I see her asleep on a bench. She wears a blue rag blanket, cloak cinched with rope. Her shoes are more tape than leather and mostly wish. Her arms clonic like my dog's dreaming legs as he chases dandelion spores in a perfect meadow. Somebody's daughter? Did they watch her innocent baby sleep? One hand hangs down, below an empty bottle. Who gave her that first drink? What happened next? Questions. I create stories to explain tragedy. Days before, when we left that restaurant, a bum took my friend's proffered dollar, said, God bless. What would that mean to her? Should I wake her and offer one of the Susan B. Anthony's I carry for such a moment? A blessing or a curse? Perhaps I should leave it on the pile of bits and treasures she manages to carry on her flotsam journey. Perhaps I should buy a bottle of better gin. I don't begrudge oblivion. Why did he ask Rodolphe for chips and salsa when we all knew he'd prefer a pack of smokes and a bottle of forgetfulness? I do not forget her, but I do walk away. I write a poem to expiate my guilt, not because I kept that coin, but that part of me envies her. Perhaps we should share a pint of gin and frolic together in dandelion fields.
Good.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers to that one for sure. All right. Number 2.
Okay. Hope I haven't read this one before. Memory traps me, stops me dead. The day stalled before it starts. Daylight dimming and the dark coming down as if in an eclipse, like the one I'll be too far away to see. And there she is, Grandma, coming down the steps backwards, one black shoe after the other, apron already on, her armor against the rare invasion of questions she won't answer, although she could. How could I trust her, or how not? After she took me, all of 6 years old, to the Red and Gold Theater for the first movie I ever saw. An epic, of course. God and all his ministers up against the Egyptians, who I preferred anyway, because they had much better stuff, gold jewelry and bright linen, stylishly draped, while all those dull shepherds lived in rough tents with nubby fabrics and wild hair, their God interrupting their enemies with blood and bugs and green smoke, killing children to get his way, taking his favorites through the split river, then drowning all the rest. No wonder I had nightmares. Grandma's favor never saved me from her one-legged brother's unwanted attentions, sins she forgave him and blamed me for later, shuffling off all revenge onto my small shoulders and hands that weren't brave enough to kill. Though when he died, she was sad enough, and I was glad, as those rescued shepherds coming out safe with all their enemies under God's relentless flood.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's good, Mary.
Thank you.
I had never considered taking that direction with a biblical account and connecting it to personal life experience. I like that.
Thank you. Thank
Number
you.
3.
Prayer of the Birds. Return to me the blue skies. Let me fly freely without fear, my wings not singed by sudden clouds of fire, my frame not shattered, my heart not stopped by deafening explosions. Let me sing songs of peace. I know not any songs of war. Return to the child her beloved doll so she can play house like always, though her home no longer stands, though she has nowhere to go. Let her be a child in peace and in war. Return to the mother, the baby snatched from her arms, so she may clothe its innocence with love, feed it warm milk, sing a sweet lullaby. Let it see the light of day, not the tunnel of darkness. Return to the family, the father, breadwinner, protector, husband, so he may come home from the market with food to nourish body and soul, to find his family waiting for him. Return to the dancers, the music that never stops playing, every move a celebration of youth, lived with wild abandon. Let them hear the sound of the bass, not the shots of a gun. Return to the animals, the cats and the dogs, their streets and their homes. The donkey with the sad eyes buried in the rubble is hurt. He doesn't understand what's happening. His sad eyes are seared into my brain. Return to humanity, erasure of hatred for the other. Bring back peace, your peace that passes all understanding. Let all the world fill their hearts with your love. Thank you.
Wow.
I like peace poems.
So Kavita, Ezekiel, Mendonca, you must be in Goa.
I am not in Goa. I am in Calgary, Canada, and I am born and raised in Bombay in an Indian Jewish family.
Wow.
So I'm not Goan. I'm actually a Ben Israel Indian Jewish girl, woman.
So way back, somebody came from Portugal.
No, actually way, oh yeah, that's my husband,
Way back.
Mendonca. Yeah. They actually were in Bombay too, but originally they came from somewhere. Yeah, they have a Portuguese surname. So Ezekiel is the Jewish surname and Mendonca is the Portuguese part of me. Yes, that's correct.
Very original.
Yeah. It's just that my name means poem because my dad was a poet, so I don't have a Jewish name. That's
But
all.
Have you been
K-E-M
to
is
Goa?
king.
Sorry.
Have you been to
K-E-M,
Goa?
king. Lorraine, she.
I was asking, have you been to Goa?
Oh yes, many times.
It's a wonderful place.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They were affiliated to Bombay University, and my dad used to give lectures there in English and American literature. So we would enjoy the holiday, and he would slog it out with his lectures.
Great.
Yeah, beautiful place.
Let's go to number 4.
Hi. Jim, I love your motorcycle. I had no idea.
I wish it were mine.
You always surprise me with your backgrounds. I wanted to just kind of preface this poem. It's new. I have not read it before, and it's not published anywhere yet. I'm hoping it will be. But this was written because I saw something on my news feed about a box of talismans, I guess, that were discovered in an archaeological site in Pompeii.
Right.
And it was just very intriguing. So You should Google it because it's interesting. They have pictures and a little bit of backstory. Okay, so this is called Pompeii AD 79. Slave, sorceress, first and foremost, woman. They found your wooden box with the bronze hinges, the one that held 100 tiny, precious things. Because there was no gold inside, they surmised that you were a servant and that these were merely trinkets. But what could they know of the value of this trove? The secrets and hopes of love and birth, the seductions and fortunes, good and bad, the powers outside the standard set of powers, the things that can spring from seashell, tooth, and bone, cinnabar and glass, carnelian and amber, the amethyst beads, the phallus, skulls, and scarabs, the amulets and dolls, your arsenal of charms. I hope they brought you clarity and strength, transformation, that they absorbed your pain, made you brave, protected you, that a verdigris of peace settled over you awake or asleep. I hope the bird bones conjured wings so that you could fly away. Thanks.
Like that.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we up to 5?
Yep.
All right.
Bewitched. Para Doña Elba, if you can hear these words. 1. Barefoot, a woman walks south down the black highway, a blue shirt tied at her waist, hiding her bare hips. She crosses her arms across her bare, large, sagging breasts, her eyes looking down. Just walking, walking. Her sun-toasted skin, the color of the eastern hills, twisted from the earth's depths, sparsely covered with thorny brush. Above those heights circle frigate birds, flying inland from the deep blue sea, on the other side of the highway, ebbing, flowing upon sand, the color of her sun-toasted skin. 2. Quarter moon passes to new, and this afternoon I see that woman, bewitched by her husband's lover, walking northward up that black highway, bare-breasted, bare-bottomed, barefoot, sun-toasted, walking, just walking.
Wow. That was really descriptive. I like that.
Powerful. Very powerful.
Number 6.
Okay, I'm gonna try and share screen. Just because I can, I guess.
Good enough reason.
Not sure which one this is supposed to be. 12, 14, or 20, or 6. 6. Where is 6? It's showing all of them.
I
This is
see Stafford 5624. That's the only one that's up.
This is. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry for the technical glitches here. Blame it on me.
Done.
Okay, now we go. Where's Zoom? There it is. Okay, now I give up. So I'm going to read it off the piece of paper.
Okay,
Okay, so normally I'm known for being oddball and obtuse and things like that. Certainly not sentimental, but actually on Mother's Day, I wrote a Mother's Day poem. So here we go. Mother's Day is usually with an apostrophe S, but in my line number 1, it's with S apostrophe. That'll explain that in advance. Today is Mother's Sick Day. I've seen lots of flowers for sale in stores and at roadside stands. Considerable quantities of social media posts dedicated to moms. Even a few television programs concerning maternal matters. Plenty of restaurant reservations for couples and whole families. And a few music specials at patio bars and in-the-know wineries. Some of us stay home to get out the shoe boxes of photographs to see if there's just one more of her suitable for framing and placement. Namaste.
yeah. This group is old enough to have, most of us, lost parents, one or more. And my mother died in 1989. My father died in March. So he outlived her by 30 plus years or 40. I lose count. And the things that I write about them are very, very different. And I skipped Mother's Day poetry this year, but thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to do a poem, read a poem that is a perception poem of how people see each other and how close friends see the same person that is seen publicly. So this is called Naked Truth. I am standing in the doorway, gaze fixed on nothing in the distance, picturing the shimmers of light in the sparkling cloth you wear for everyone. Others must see 1,000 reflections staring back from the sequins, one for each masked stranger, one for every friend. I never see you dressed in your best lace, best mood or face, or think of you covered at all. No, when I look at you, my sight goes past the wrappings, past the naked truth where some, distracted, would stop. When I look at you, you are all I see. Essence of woman, vestiges of innocence surrounded by the hard years that have softened you. Part of my mind or heart will always dress you in the music of the moment, garden violet, hurricane gray, or Gettysburg green. But even at their most intense, the colors are as translucent as the songs I sing to no one when no one at all is listening, and all I see is all you are, perfect enough in my reflection.
Mm. I like that.
Very nice.
All right, that brings us back around to number 1.
Number 1. A poem for the new year 5783. Praying at the Western Wall and worshiping the God of all, the old men wrote their pleas with long-treasured bar mitzvah pens. Paper white and square, ink deep Spanish red. Origami folded roosters, cocks with combs, waiting for that final dawn, proud, regretful. They tuck petitions with narrow fingers of tattooed arms deep into crevices in the old temple's wailing walls. Today, as every year before repentance time, the rabbis come with sharpened sticks and sharper eyes to pry those slips from holy clefts from burial. in a common sacred grave where Christ ascends. Does that mean God has read their words? That Adonai will quench their soul's deepest thirsts? The ash that drifts over Europe carries prayers to heaven. The entreaties of the dead water blessings on Jerusalem.
Yes. Number 2.
Okay, that's me. This one's kind of new. I haven't fooled around with it too much. It's called The Wash. Backbone of my mother's days. Almost broke her back. Every day's load carried down 2 flights of steps, her small body braced against the weight of the full basket, the sheets and shirts that clothed and smoothed our way through the days and nights without number, down into the darkness of the cellar in winter, lit by a few dim bulbs, the red mouth of the furnace breathing in its far corner, and the lines strung like a maze from wall to wall, post to post. At 8, she thought me old enough to help, or at least keep her company. My favorite job, feeding the wet cloth from tub to tub through the wringer, those tight rollers nipping at my fingertips as they pushed the water out, me feeling somehow I had mastered danger, keeping my hands and fingers free, even with Mama right there. A careless move could mean disaster, pain, and danger one slip away where she could never be fast enough to stop it. We worked at the machine with fear pushed back, but always present, like the fire in the furnace breathing in its dark corner. And Mama knew that even at only an arm's length away from me, here in the cellar or on the street, in the park or at a family picnic, she might not see the danger coming down, unstoppable as that ringer picking me out of the crowd, the way a tornado takes out one home in a row, so quick there's no escaping. Thank you.
Wow. Well done. Number 3.
So I think Charles was asking about my name. So I'm going to read a poem about my name. And it's called Give Me Oil in My Lamp. And it was published in Verse Virtue. Give me oil in my lamp. Grandmother took me to the old synagogue, walking down the potholed sidewalks of a noisy Bombay street, close to her home, every square inch populated with humanity. The oil lamp in the very old synagogue hung high from the ceiling. For a few rupees, we could keep the light burning. She was afraid to climb the ladder provided by the caretaker, in case she missed a step. I was afraid for her too. So he took the donation and lit the lamp. I must cover my head with a handkerchief. She would pray to the prophet Elijah, for the oil never to run out. The lamp must never die out. Wanting to know in whose name he could make the receipt, I did not have a Jewish name. Change it for the receipt, Grandma said matter-of-factly, or the caretaker will get confused. So I went from being called Kavita to Elizabeth, for the sake of a 2-rupee receipt I really did not want or need. Mother did want to name me Elizabeth, I recall. It's okay. When you get home, you can go back to your real name or your father will be upset, Grandmother said calmly. Thank you. So Charles, you got it now?
Lizzie. Izzy Lizzie.
Easy, Lizzie. Okay. That's my new name.
That's what I expect to see on your next submit to.
Working on it.
Let's go to number 4.
It's a short one. The title is In Dreams, a House Represents the Self. So vivid me, taking the stairs, 2 at a time, to enter the house that used to be ours, but now is just yours, to rescue you from yourself. That burnt plastic smell at the back of my throat as I dodged the flames that danced in the holes that were punched through the walls and all of the floors of all of the rooms, only to find you in the back of the last empty room, not letting go of the pipe. Thank you.
Wow.
Ooh.
Number 5.
Okay. Let's see. Where are you? Calling the Soul. It has a little bit of a epigraph. I wrote this in Shahul, Guatemala in March 1994 during the Civil War in a village tormented by death squads. But for a while, something calls the soul deeply. The whitewashed facade of the church stands ghostly in the darkness of misty pre-dawn mountains. Candlelight dances through its open door. Already a long line of pilgrims reaches to there. Criollos in fine sewn clothes, Ladinos with sandaled feet, gnarled by miles of walk through mud and cold. Barefoot indigenas in their colorful village clothing. They shuffle down the twilight nave, murmuring prayers, holding tapers and bouquets. Past the santos along the walls, whose mirrors on foreheads reflect the candlelight. They finger the crimson and white robes of the Christ of Golgotha. Garlands of flowers drape his gilded altarpiece. 2 red-coated stone soldiers guard either side. And the silent is hazed by the hundreds of candles embraced by chamomile, pooling their wax on the stone floor. The flickering flames lick the yellow-eyed blossoms, sweetening this early morn.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Lots of really good images.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I have a question for you, Lorraine.
Yes, sir.
Are you a native Spanish speaker?
No, but I've been speaking since I was very young.
Excellent.
The reason I ask is because frequently when I get poems submitted to Verse Virtual by folks who are not native English speakers, there's always struggle with the nuances of syntax and prepositions and other things that are difficult in English, especially compared to the Romance languages. And when I was listening to your poem, I was thinking this is either someone who is extremely fluent in 2 languages, or English must be her first language.
Or Italian.
Nice try, Charles.
Caputo.
Caputo. Siciliano.
At any rate, it was
Io sono siciliano.
it was a
It was a
lovely
very
poem.
good poem. Very good
Thank
poem.
you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still angry about what happened in Guatemala. When I went there in the 1970s, it was still relatively peaceful, and you could interact with people of all levels in the city and in the countryside and the mountainside. And then the Christian right government got in there and just started eliminating their own population. It was very ugly. Painful.
Indeed. Let's go to number 6, Charles.
Okay, so raise your hand if you're doing the Stafford Challenge.
What is this? What is it?
The Stafford Challenge is it's a poetry group it's going to exist for 1 year, where this deceased professor of poetry said, let's do an event where it's every day. You promise to write a poem, long or short, every day for 366 days. And then if you want to share them, you can. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I'm retired. I have time. So far I haven't missed a day. But you run out of ideas, so you start looking around for prompts. So one of the prompts I saw said pick a sound pattern with repeated sounds, and maybe even more than one or interrelated ones. So I said, okay, I'll do one of those. So of course on Mother's Day, the prompt was write a poem about mom. Okay, that was the easiest one. But anyway, there's all these places that have poetry prompts posted daily or weekly.
Yeah.
Several, including on Verse Virtual. I see them every once in a while. Somebody will say, hey, they'll point us to a new place with prompts. So this one is sound related, not sentimental. Title, On an Absent Vowel and Consonant Pair. Since the morn, I did quietly attend a mass honoring a dearly deceased spokesperson. I have amassed a massive amount of new written material concerning his legacies. This week, I have managed to make a mess of a message management system I have. Something's clearly amiss, though I don't miss one bit any of the oversights or deletions. No, I shall nonetheless compose a missive of regret to post prominently for all to see and to ponder, perchance deem it consequential, a must read. Namaste.
That was fun. Absolutely fun. I'm going to read a very short poem that I wrote about 25 years ago. I do not like morning. Never have been a morning person. So this is called Waking. There are a few things that make my days worthwhile, worth waking up for. So waking. One ray invades this quiet place. Small beam of light, almost apologetic. Not the focused intensity of lasers, nor the prying of a searchlight. Just one small ray painting my eyelids with the warm sweetness of honey and flowers waiting to be seen. Chickadees singing solo, wanting to be heard. Pleasure of another day spent in thoughts of you.
When do you consider a reasonable hour to get up?
10:30, 11.
Yeah. Okay, so
Oh,
And I
In
would
time for lunch.
I would never go to bed before 2 or 3 a.m. if I were on my own schedule, but my work life has primarily been day shift for the last 30 years. So I'm used to getting up at 6 or 7 in the morning and dragging through the day and then taking a nap before supper just to survive. I don't know how many years I spent on 4 and 5 hours of sleep a night.
Maybe you should change careers and become a baker.
he's going to retire.
Bake bread. Bread bakers.
I love this advice from a man who's older than I am.
Well, yeah, I am. Yeah, I believe that one should learn to live with one's own schedule, whatever it is.
One also likes to eat and support a family,
yes, that's true.
and it's okay.
Well, again, I'm going to say become a bread baker. They make a good living. They just work strange hours.
Yes, they do. Not even remotely interested.
Oh, well.
'Cause for me, bread bakers work the hours that I would be asleep.
Yes.
Get up and start baking at 3 and finish by 10 and then go home and go to sleep while someone else sells what they've made.
You could name it Sleepy Bread. That's the new brand.
And it's made at 7 in the evening. All right. That takes care of 2 full rounds. Are you up for a final round?
Yes,
Bueno.
always, anytime.
All right.
All right.
Number 1.
Yeah. This is a poem I'm still kind of working on. Lately, I've been doing a lot of playwriting, and so I thought I should write an invocation for a playwright. How grand it is to talk with gods and hear them speak in iambic beat, or heart of dactyl galloped pace along Aegean's blood-dyed beach towards blind Homer and Euripides. Dionysius, share your cup with me, recite invocatives of unkind fate. Erinyes, sing your vengeance overture, set the scene to match the angry voice, more whisper than mighty roar, implore the weaver of life's short cloak to allow us tread the stage once more. The chorus strophe and antistrophe, my death must be a poed enough.
I'm sorry, but you triggered a dad joke.
Oh, right ahead, Dad.
Man walks into a tailor shop, hands the tailor a pair of pants. The tailor says, Euripides? The man says, yes, Eumenides.
Well, off to the penitentiary with you.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was funny.
That's funny.
Upon my word. All right, Mary, when you can
Okay.
take a deep breath, we'll go to you next.
Yeah. And this one's very matter of fact. Unlike birth, death doesn't taste miraculous, new and extraordinary, staged in flesh and blood, pain and joy and raw astonishment. No, it comes without trumpets and parades, no fanfare, ordinary as a breath not taken, the silence after the last heartbeat, that empty space you are never ready for, no matter the warnings and red flags waving. Centered on your stillness while the traffic flows or snarls outside the window, grass still thrusts up through cracked earth, wind still sorts through the clouds, mail still lies off on the floor, and milk sits unspoiled on the shelf. Someone with you or not, you wind down like a warm spring, so quiet it seems nothing much has happened. The hours pass undisturbed. Unlike the infant's startled cry claiming arrival, you leave quietly, your tongue resting behind your teeth, your lips blue, unmoving, as the flesh cools and the blood pools and settles, answering to nothing but the pull of gravity. Thank you.
Very good, very good. All right, number 3.
So this poem is based on a video. One of my relatives in Israel posted a video that someone else had posted. And the poem was based on that, called Questions from a Refugee. Have you forgotten the pogroms when I was driven out from many lands, forced to abandon my homes, my businesses? Have you forgotten how I left with nothing? Was I called a refugee in your lexicon, or was there another word for it? Have you forgotten the broken glass, my home and shops destroyed, while I made plans to flee, hunted no matter where I ran? We break glass at weddings, births, we say Mazel Tov, a shout of joy, but not that night. Yellow stars belong to the sky. I had to wear one on my arm. Would you call me a refugee if the river and the forest in darkness were the only desperate hope of hiding my existence? There were no protests, no hunger strikes when the water in the showers turned to gas, when fierce dogs tore at my heels while I stood helpless before my God. Do you have a name for me? Or am I the number tattooed on my arm, which the smoke engraved for permanence? Remember me, too, in your prayers, as I remember all those I watch on the television screen. Our suffering merges. No history can erase it. Come quickly, Lord. May we all find refuge in you. It's the only place I'm willing to live in exile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was,
That was yeah. Sorry, Mary, you were saying.
I think that's a poem that we need to hear now
Yeah.
after some of the things that we've heard recently and seen.
Yeah.
You have me.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's very tragic that in India we never even used the word Holocaust or learnt much about the Jewish refugees fleeing, etc. It's only after I saw a film on the Diary of Anne Frank and later Schindler's List, etc. But I'm always looking to examine both sides and be open-minded to both sides. And I learned a lot of history, ironically, through this tragedy, which I wish had never happened. But anyway, so there's a lot of poems coming from that grief.
Yep.
We're
and
gonna
there's
talk-
lots of grief.
If we're going to talk about that human grief, and Lord knows, we can in so many places. I'm going to add a new place for those of you who pray for for all the people suffering. If you haven't heard about it, one of the worst in terms of suffering, percentage of people suffering, as bad as Gaza at this point, is New Caledonia in the middle of the friggin' South Pacific. Should be a
Right.
paradise. And right now, they are on the edge of all starving because of civil unrest.
Yeah.
So it's all over the world.
Yep.
It's everywhere. Yeah, it's just.
Shaun, you ready?
Well, I was gonna change the subject because it's gonna be kind of different, but I don't mean to be disrespectful. I could pick another poem that's a little more somber.
Oh,
But I'm gonna read this one.
lighten the mood. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. This one is called Cake. I want to be the object of someone's hunger. I want them to look at me the way I look at cake. Not for the frosting or the pretty decorations, but for the heft, the substance of me. I want them to dream of me, long for me, crave me. I want to loll around in their mouth, stain their fingers, their lips. I want to be eaten without utensils, unplated and messy and over the sink with both hands. And when they are done, I want them to want more. There you go. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
That was delicious.
I thought you'd like it, even though I've only met you for the first time.
All right, Charles.
Lorraine Caputo is kaput. So I'll just, we're gonna jump over number 5. Somebody mentioned something about an anthology, a publication, something to do with illness. And I remember last year, one of my favorite publications was in an anthology published in London by a poet from, I think she's from Croatia, and a psychiatrist who doubles as a writer. And they have this press, and their latest project was called Disease, and was an anthology of poetry about mental and physical maladies. And I sent them 3 things and they published them. And I like to remember that well. Switch to last week, this friend of mine, colleague here in Santa Cruz, brought his parents here from Miami because they're elderly and they need care, and he's an only son and he's taking care of them. So he sets everything up and brings them here the week before Mother's Day. And on Wednesday, his mother dies. So yeah, like 2 days after they got here, he got him set up. And on Wednesday morning, she was gone. So it's kind of shocking for him. But for yeah, all of us who know him too, I say, man, that's tough for it to happen that way. So so that was my prompt for the day, which evoked this poem called Death of a Recent Arrival. She was unknown to me personally, though known to some friends. She traveled first class for the first time in her long life to come here. The reception on the level of people was so naturally quite pleasing. But where medical well-being was at stake, 'twas quite another story. Joining the ranks of the deceased in the first week of your time here is not exactly the scenario you would rank among bring it desiderata. But fine, let us continue to go with the flow and to go with the flow and accept the inevitability of such occurrences and just try to be at peace. Namaste.
Thank you.
I like how he says namaste at the end of every time he reads a poem. Where did you get that from? Namaste. What's the influence? Charles, what's the influence of namaste?
Well, I learned it in yoga class. I actually once learned a whole long prayer in Sanskrit. But I've forgotten it. But I did remember. I remember Namaste.
Great.
And then I saw somebody do it on some poetry reading maybe 3 or 4 years ago when
Yeah.
the pandemic readings first started happening.
Yep.
And there were some of them still survive. But I remember somebody did that. Was it Namaste? I said, oh, that's
Namaste,
cool.
yeah.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Fun. I'm going to end things with a fairly short poem that has a real twist in the middle of it, and I'll leave you to figure out what happened. This is called My First Time. This is my first confession about my very first time. Don't be angry if I'm clumsy or embarrassed, if I'm explicit. I remember it so clearly, the way she led me to the bed, whispered softly, "It will be okay." Trembling, I placed my stethoscope on her patient's bare chest. Thump, 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 thump. She swore she saw heaven and hell reflected in my eyes as that heart abruptly stopped beneath my hands.
Oh,
And that was quite an experience. I'd certainly
I'll
seen
bet
people
it.
die before, but to have someone's heart stop while my stethoscope was on their chest, that was my very first time.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Was that
Oh,
in nursing school?
No, it was in a hospital here in California,
wow.
my first California job. And the patient was a do not resuscitate, so there was no panic afterwards. It was just so unexpected for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
A DNR.
Yeah.
There are some times in life when we get to be a witness in one way or another. And I
Yes.
don't think I've ever heard anybody be a witness in that setting that way before.
Yeah.
That was also my only time. So
So next time, the next anthology of disease, can we invite you to submit?
please, I have a number of related poems with mental and physical ails.
So I think they're going to try to do a second volume.
I would be happy to be part of that.
When you
That's such
started, when you started the poem, I thought it was going in a completely different direction.
That's the surprise.
Sorry, I mean, I have a good mind, but yet.
Somehow connected to cake.
but it's so intimate. I mean,
Yeah.
that was such an intimate experience of death, to be so connected, listening, to the heartbeat right when it stops. And I'm a nurse too, like Jim, and You do. I mean, you are close to death and life. You know, it's part of your work.
Yeah.
Well, when I wrote that poem, I specifically chose that format and that plot twist so that there was that strong sense of intimacy about to happen, but it wasn't
Right.
the intimacy that I led you to believe was
That's
going
what
to happen.
they say. Every poem should have a surprise, and
Yeah.
that definitely this
Yeah.
qualifies.
So
So speaking of cake, there's a Canadian storyteller named Catherine Carey, Cary,
Mm.
and she has a brand new album that came out this last week called Air Cake. And the last story is it's cake. It's about cake.
Cake.
It's basically that the poem was very much like that poem, and it's a 5-minute oral story with sound effects and musical instruments and stuff. So, Catherine Carey,
Carry.
Air Cake.
Air cake. Okay. Got to remember that.
that
Yeah.
does sound fun. Well, at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and then we can visit for another 5 minutes or so before I go away to eat supper.